Greetings, friends. David Marks here. After a decade teaching this program, I've noticed that many Lightroom users are still unclear on how to properly move, delete, or rename their photos using this powerful program. So in today's tutorial, we are going to take an in-depth look at how to rename your photos and folders using Lightroom Classic. I'm going to jump into my Classic catalog right now, and let's get started. I don't usually start my tutorials out this way, but I want to start by showing you what we absolutely do not want to do first today, and then I will show you the better way. If I go to a photo like this one, if I go to any image that my Lightroom catalog currently tracks, and then if I go find the real file that this thumbnail in Lightroom represents using my computer's operating system, then I'm guaranteed to make my life unpleasant if I change anything about this file or folder's name using my OS. The minute that I change anything about this photograph's name or this folder's name at the operating system level, then I've messed things up back in Lightroom Classic. Let me prove this by closing this window. And now, do you see this question mark here inside of the Library Module Folders panel? This question mark is Classic's way of saying that it can no longer find the folder with that old name inside of my computer. Likewise, do you see this mark here on all of these photos? This is Classic's way of saying that it cannot find any of the real photos that it used to track and that have now gone missing. Let me fix the damage that I've done here, and then I'll teach you the proper way to go about renaming things. To reconnect this missing folder, I need to right-click here on the folder's name, and then choose the Find Missing Folders command. Next, I can find the folder whose name I changed and tell Lightroom that this is what it needs to update its records. That fixed almost everything except this photo here. Notice that this image, the photo that I also renamed at the operating system level, is still missing. To fix this, I need to click on this little mark, and then I need to use the Locate Missing Image command to reconnect the real file with its thumbnail here in my database. So now that you've seen what not to do, let's dig into the correct way to rename things without upsetting Lightroom Classic. The correct way to rename any folder that your catalog tracks is to right-click on the folder's name here inside of the Library Modules folder panel, and then to choose Lightroom's Rename command. When this box appears, you can type whatever you want in here, though I have very specific advice elsewhere on what I think you should use for your folder names, but I'll save that sermon for now. You can type whatever you want in here, but remember that many of the punctuation symbols, like the colon, the slash, and the backslash symbol, are illegal characters. As you can see, if Lightroom Classic renames this folder, then your catalog has no problem keeping track of it and all of the images that this folder contains. If Lightroom does the renaming for you, then there are no problems. Before I show you how easy it is to rename a single photo, let's explore the forbidden punctuation characters topic a little further. If you open up the Preferences menu inside of Lightroom Classic, on a Mac, you'll find Preferences here underneath the word Lightroom on the menu bar. PC folks, you have the same thing, but your Preferences menu lives underneath the word Edit up there at the top of your screen. Once the Preferences panel is open, hop over to the File Handling tab and take a look at the bottom of this window where there's a section called File Name Generation. The settings that you choose in these boxes tell Lightroom what it should do if you try to type an illegal character when you're changing one of your file names. It would be nice if Adobe provided a little more guidance here, but you need to remember that certain characters, like the slash, the backslash, the period symbol, and others, are marks that your computer's operating system uses for a specific purpose. My advice is that you click on the first box here and choose the longer list of forbidden characters. I don't think that you need to change anything in the next two boxes, but you can if you want. I urge you to check on the settings in this area of your preferences before you proceed any further with this tutorial. Okay, so to rename a single photo in Classic, all that we have to do is to select an image in the Library module, and then we can open up the Metadata panel that lives at the very bottom of Classic's right-hand sidebar. Once the Metadata panel is open, click in the file name box right here. Now, you can type in whatever you want for your new file name. When you do this, Lightroom again does the renaming for you, and it is able to instantly update its index and to change this file's name on your hard drive. Because Lightroom does the heavy lifting, this photo never gets lost or disconnected from your index. That was easy, and clicking in this box is perfectly fine whenever you want to rename one image at a time. If you encounter a situation, though, where you want to rename a whole block of photos, then we need to turn to a more powerful feature. For bulk renaming, we need to select more than one file, and then we need to go up to the word Library on the menu bar and down to Classic's Rename Photos command. I've talked about bulk renaming before in some of my other tutorials on import presets. Most of the time, I use this command only during the import process. But for the sake of today's demo, let's say that I have found a bunch of images, like these, where I didn't change their file names when they were first copied over. Now, I could use any of the crappy file name templates that Adobe included here, but none of these will make me happy. To do better work, I'm going to click down here on the option at the bottom that says Edit. When I do that, a new dialog box will appear. This dialog box, the File Name Template Editor window, looks slightly different on a Mac than a PC. Despite their slightly different appearance, the way that things work inside of this screen are the same on either platform. The first thing that I'm going to do is to wipe out whatever it says in this big box at the top using the Delete key on my keyboard. Next, we're going to set up our own template using a combination of fixed text and placeholder values. I'm going to do this so that Lightroom can adjust those placeholder tokens for me as it works its way through all of the images that I've currently asked it to rename. What I want to do in here is to create a template that begins with a little bit of fixed text. And for my fixed text, for the prefix, I'll either use my initials or some abbreviation of my first and last name. Next, I like to add a dash, but an underscore or a space would work. And now I need to use these buttons down here for my placeholder tokens. In the file naming system that I recommend, the next thing that I want Lightroom to add is the year. And I want that written out as 4 digits, which is abbreviated as YYYY. Next, I'll add another dash up here in the big box. Then I'll click here to change to the placeholder for the month written out as 2 digits. Again, tap up here, add another dash, add a placeholder for the day, and then I'll add one more dash. Using these placeholder tokens, I'm telling Lightroom Classic to automatically insert the capture date for each of these images into the middle of my file's new name. But we're not quite done yet. At the end of my file names, I really like Lightroom to include the original number suffix for me so that I get the counter number that the camera assigned each of these images at the end of the file name. If you look closely at the example text right now, then you can see what I think a proper file name for a new digital image ought to look like. To save these settings as a template, I need to click up here at the top and then come down to the one that says Save Current Settings as New Preset. I'll give this preset a name, and then I can hit Done. Now, I can tell Lightroom that this is the template that I want it to use on all of the currently selected images. Bam! All of these images have great file names, and my catalog is still happy. Well, now you know how to rename folders, individual photos, and large blocks of images. Before I sign off, though, let me offer a little warning. Before you use any of the skills that you've learned in this video, please take a moment and ask yourself, why am I doing this? What benefit will renaming your files or folders bring you in the long run? And are the changes that you're about to make really going to improve your workflow years down the road? My point is that the renaming process is easy, but picking good names for our photos and folders, well, that requires a little critical thinking. I hope that you found this video helpful. If you learned something today, then please hit the subscribe button and leave us a like or a comment down below. Thanks for watching. and I'll see you in our next tutorial.